Already sailing through the second month of 2025. And of course, a lot of things are going on in the world and around the world. And of course, we'll be talking about that on World Edition. We'll see who else joins us and all along those lines. But yes, it is already the end of the third week because today is February 21st, 2025. And that's a lot going on in the world. So we'll be talking about that and seeing what folks have to say about a number of these things that happen in the world. And don't forget, at 11 o'clock, we have Ukraine, Russia, and China with my good friend Sasha Starr talking about what's going on in that conflict. But Hamas says Shiri Bibi's remains mixed with other human remains after Israeli airstrike. So, fate of Bibi's family renew fears for an Israeli Gaza ceasefire. So, IDF spokesman Hamas terrorists murdered Ariel and Kiffer Babas with their bare hands. And Hamas claims remains of the mother of the two young children were mixed with other Israeli human remains after the Israeli airstrike. And planes diverted as China conducts rare military drill near Australia. So Chinese Navy drills near Australia are drawing complaints and causing flight diversions. And China issued disconcerting warning of live fire exercises to planes flying above, according to what Australia said. So airlines are warned as Chinese Navy holds live fire exercises off of Australia. And Arab leaders are gathering in Saudi Arabia to hash out alternatives to Trump's plan for Gaza. So Arab leaders are scrambling to counter Trump's Gaza plans, and that's something that is going on as well, as Egypt and its neighbors work on alternatives to that Gaza plan that Trump had proposed. And they're hoping that their plan won't displace Palestinians. And Trump rolls back protections for about 520,000 Haitian migrants. So Secretary Nome rescinds extension of Haiti's temporary protected status. So Trump administration is ending the extension of Haiti's temporary protected status and all along those lines. And multiple bus explosions in Israel put the country on terrorism alert. So no injuries from Israeli bus explosions in suspected militant attack, according to what police are saying. And Netanyahu visits Tulkarem amid counter-terror operations. So that's something else that we're seeing in the news as well. And Germany's far right seeks to convert Trump's power into vote gains. So far right looks for election breakthrough as Germany falters. Young voters are powering the rise of Germany's far right AFD party, according to what some folks are saying in that part of the world. And the U.S. deports asylum seekers, including children, to a detention camp in Panama. That was reported yesterday. Trump deports hundreds to third countries, leaving them in legal limbo. As Trump exports deportees, hundreds are trapped in a Panama hotel. And police were searching for a woman who escaped Panama hotel where U.S. deportees are being held. I'm not sure they found that person or not. But if I hear something, I'll let you know. And all along those lines. Macron's message to Trump: you can't be weak in the face of Putin. So looks like some folks are asking, will Ukraine turn into World War III? Macron doesn't rule it out. Francis Macron is saying Ukraine Zelensky is the legitimate president, and Macron's defense wake-up call for Europe and the U.S. So that's something else that we're seeing as well. And by the way, speaking of conflict and all along those lines, it looks like Trudeau kind of like tried to stick it to some degree to this whole notion of being the 51st country because they won the Four Nations contest and all along those lines. Meaning Canada beat the U.S. apparently in a thrilling 3-2 game and all along those lines. But if I heard correctly, Trudeau was basically saying you can't take our country and you can't take our game, meaning hockey, and all along those lines. And China is defending South Africa's G20 ambitions as Rubio snubs a meeting. So Ramaphosa holds the line in Trump's G20 spat, and the U.S. Treasury Bezant is to skip the G20 meeting in South Africa. South Africa is urging cooperation at G20 meeting amid tensions over Ukraine. And tens of thousands could be held in illegal scam compounds in Myanmar. That's what the police general in that country is saying. And Thailand is ready to welcome 7,000 traffic scam call center victims back from Myanmar. and hundreds of Chinese were airlifted home after the crackdown on the Myanmar scam centers. So China begins reparation from Thailand of more than 1,000 online scam workers that were rescued in that particular situation. I did hear that President Trump is still looking at that national monument of heroes that he wants to build, and all along those lines. And I guess because of Black History Month, he did say that two of the statues would be Muhammad Ali, which ought to be interesting since we know that Muhammad Ali was definitely anti-war and all along those lines. And another one that he was thinking about erecting was none other than Kobe Bryant. So those are the two athletes that he is thinking about putting in that wall space and all along those lines. So it ought to be interesting to see what folks have to say about that. And the grand jury is recommending Alabama Police Department be immediately abolished. Alabama police force put on leave after grand jury says that it operated like a criminal outlet or a criminal organization. Culture of corruption may destroy Huntsville Police Department. Scandal shocks the small college town in that area and all along those lines. So that's something else that we're seeing in the news as well. By the way, if you've got questions, don't forget that that's what that QR code is that's at the corner there and everything. If you scan it, you can send in your questions and we'll try to answer them. Hopefully others will be joining me on this World Edition. I know we've got the Sasha show coming at 11, and we've got the show that talks about doing justice brings joy at noon with Stella Adams. And hopefully they'll be able to do similar things on some of the other shows as well. The Senate GOP adopts a budget blueprint to advance Trump agenda, setting up a clash with House Republicans. So the Senate adopts a $340 billion budget blueprint for Trump's agenda after a marathon vote and all along those lines. So Senate border budget triumphs after an all-night session while Trump's backed House bill is lagging. But the Senate GOP did pass a budget resolution and punts on some tough questions. And a federal judge is allowing Trump's mass firing of federal workers to move forward. So that's something else that we're seeing as well. And Trump and Elon's pointless bloodbath at the FAA is even worse than you think, according to what Rolling Stone is saying. And in Politico, they're saying air traffic controllers cannot do their work without us. But the family of the D.C. plane crash victim files claim against the FAA and the Army for $250 million. And Trump is urged to halt firings at the FAA. And it looks like Trump targets the Presido Trust in San Francisco, a Nancy Pelosi achievement. So Trump is taking aim at Pelosi's hometown legacy, and he's targeting San Francisco's Presido Trust in an executive order. So he's moving to slash the Presido Trust and striking at a beloved jewel of the San Francisco parks and all along those lines. And a member of flight crew detained at Boston Airport before an international flight to Paris. And New York Governor Kathy Hochul says she will remove Mayor Eric Adams. So the New York governor won't remove Eric Adams as mayor. And she has announced some guardrails around Eric Adams, though. But definitely, it looks like she won't be trying to remove him from the mayorship in that particular case. And the Ukraine mineral deal is a perfect metaphor for Trump's foreign policy, according to CNN. U.S. officials say Trump's frustration with Zelensky is multifold and blast insults from Ukraine. So definitely, it looks like the U.S.-Ukraine mineral talks at the make-or-break moment for Ukraine, according to U.S. officials. And fired IRS employees decries irony of being hired to make the IRS more efficient. So something that folks are saying as well. Denver worker loses job as part of a sweeping nationwide layoff at the IRS, and the IRS layoffs could affect filings and refunds. Hundreds of Philly IRS workers were laid off on Thursday, according to what the unions had reported. So definitely that's something else that we're seeing in the news as well. And Trump's "Long Live the King" post sparks outcry, embarrassing and disrespectful to our country. And Jano Lieber, congestion pricing's biggest booster, prepares to take on the White House. So New York City congestion pricing battle continues as Trump's administration's DOT pumps brakes on that program. And E. Jean Carroll's lawyer takes another swing at Trump, this time over the New York City tolls. So it looks like this toll thing is interesting as well. And Trump reportedly plans to take control of the U.S. Postal Service in steps toward privatization. So Trump expects to take control of the USPS and fire the Postal Board, officials are saying. He already did that to some degree with the Kennedy Center. It looks like he's now targeting the Postal Center as well. So Trump threatens a Postal Service takeover. What could Trump mail mean for your delivery? So we'll see what happens if he takes over the mail service as well. So this ought to be real interesting to see how this plays out. And in Michigan, earned sick time and minimum wage bills are on their way to the governor. Michigan lawmakers passed a paid sick bill leave late last Thursday, and they also have some laws that they're looking at in terms of wage laws. And apparently the House in Michigan amended the minimum wage bill. So definitely we'll see how this all plays out. And as I reported yesterday, Mitch McConnell's retirement sparks a political explosion in Kentucky. And he definitely said he won't be seeking re-election in 2026. And India must refuse to become a pawn in the Trump-Biden USAID conflict, according to what's being reported in India today. Trump's 21 million for voter turnout remark sparks political row in India. So definitely brutal assault on democracy. Vice President Diankar calls for exposing those who accepted invasion amid some of the money coming from the USAID or something like that. And Elon Musk sets up a clash with the Republican deficit hawks over Doge dividend checks. So could Trump really return Doge savings to taxpayers? So that's what the Associated Press is asking. And what is a Doge dividend check? Will you get a $5,000 stimulus check? Here's what to know. I know yesterday Rick was thinking it would be a lot less, in fact, $1,000 and all along those lines, but we'll see how it all plays out. And fired park rangers are trying to open some heart on social media. So I guess they're trying to get people to have some sympathy for them and all along those lines. So Trump administration backtracks on eliminating thousands of national parks. So long lines and canceled rentals. Firing brings chaos to the national park system. So we'll see how this plays out. And some people are asking, is Adam Schiff a new entry in Kash Patel's enemies list? So Senate confirms Kash Patel as Trump's FBI director, and that'll be meaning he'll have a 10-year term to lead the FBI. Excuse me. I'll bring up my folks, including Rick Rosner and Sasha Starr, and of course, Jacoby and others. Are you ready for the Trump post office?
No, the post office. All right. So in 2005, the Republicans in Congress decided that the post office had to fund the next 75 years in employee pensions to the tune of setting aside $5 billion every year. So, of course, the post office isn't going to break even if it has to take $5 billion off the top for this ridiculous Republican demand. So the Republicans want to privatize the post office.
Yes.
So far, they haven't been successful. It's in the Constitution that we have a post office. It's not a for-profit business. It's a national service. Even though prices have been going up steeply, you can still mail a letter from anyone to anyone in the U.S. for 73 cents, which is the greatest bargain in the frickin' world. You can
send email for free. Okay.
Yeah, that's true. But some things require hard copies. And if you want to mail a package, you can still mail a package any place and get it there within a week or so for $11. Compare that to UPS, to FedEx. It's still a great service.
Yeah, but there are not too many people who need to send or receive hard copies. So because of these few people, you have to spend $5 billion. That's insane.
Yeah, that's a lot of money to be spending and everything. By the way, apparently there was an event, and I'd love to hear Jacoby's thoughts around this, but apparently yesterday, and I mentioned it earlier, Trump decided that on his national monument of heroes, it will be Muhammad Ali and Kobe Bryant, and even the New York Times said that he marked Black History Month yesterday, even as he's been disparaging the value of diversity and everything. But
yeah, he likes black people as long as they're famous.
Yeah, apparently there was chants yesterday of 4 more years after Trump asked if he should run again. So apparently he's really floating this idea out. Maybe he was even floating out among some of the brothers and sisters that might have been at this particular event and everything. So what is our thoughts around Trump touting Black history?
So he's firing people based on diversity and actually just skin color alone. So he's firing those. He's made it illegal in schools to teach about Black history. He's canceled the month of Black history and all other cultural history months. Pete Hegseth has now just paused, but he was about to fire one of the highest ranking Black individuals out there. His announcement, people probably couldn't go to it because according to his administration, it was illegal for him to do and illegal for people to attend. So he does, basically, and he's blamed all these different tragedies from the plane crashes to the wildfires all on Black folk. But yeah, hey, he's going to mark Black history and he's going to provide monuments to Black heroes who that people can't even learn about what Muhammad Ali was actually fighting against, what Kobe Bryant was standing up against, all these other individuals. He didn't even have Black people speak. So yeah, sure. Yeah, okay.
The first time he and his dad were investigated by the FBI was in 1972 because they weren't renting to Black people. The Department of Justice and the FBI, they sent in white people and Black people to try to rent apartments at Trump properties. White people said, yeah, we've got properties. Black people, nope, sorry. And they settled in 1973. He's been a racist for his whole freaking life. When he had casinos, he would walk through the casinos, and if he saw, he didn't want Black people in public-facing positions. He didn't want them running a roulette wheel or at a blackjack table. He'd pull them off of there and put them, in jobs where the public couldn't really see them. He's an old school racist. Like if you remember Donald Sterling, the owner of the Clippers, 10, 20 years ago.
If I do remember that case, because actually I think Doc was there coaching at that time, Doc Rivers, who is a schoolmate of mine, and all along those lines and everything, and he was actually adamantly against Sterling and all along those lines. But just along that line, and I wish Nick was here, but I see Kim, the other founder, is here. But there is so people are being given some ultimatums speaking about race-based programs. So apparently, according to the New York Times, the education department is giving schools 2 weeks to eliminate race-based programs. And the Akron Public School is reviewing policies after the new federal DEI edict threatens fundings, and Washington superintendent, meaning in the state of Washington, and everything, says the anti-DEI directive is not enforceable, which is why I was hoping that Nick would be here so he can tell us whether it's enforceable or not.
Again, Mark. But he marked Black History Month and said he'll give us a Kobe Bryant statue. Again, yeah, he's making it illegal in schools to teach about Black history. You know what else is coming? He's going to pull funding from all HBCUs. Mark my words, that's coming.
Oh, it's in the playbook. How many of you have read the playbook?
The playbook's 900 pages.
Well, I read the Obama Act when it came out because I was bored. But I read it, and I'm the one who predicted it would cause majority of the good insurance companies to close up and create a monopoly, and it did. And it's ruined our healthcare system. So, I mean, if you want to stop all of this nonsense, one, I think whoever is ethical in office would come in and go, no bills allowed to be passed through if it's written more words than the Constitution. If you can't write your bill to do something that it needs to do in that few of words, then it doesn't need to be placed in front of the people because nobody can read all of it. And they sneak so many things in there. And this was actually being discussed by Canadians. They were like, have you ever seen how much crap that they sneak into their bills? I mean, I was listening to some Canadians talk, and it's interesting to me how we're being talked about around the world. Not really. I believe it, but there's so many things going on, and I think we need to stand up. But the thing is nobody's standing up. There's some protest. There's some people marching, but we saw how the Republicans behaved, right? They raided the White House. I don't think Democrats behave that way. But and yeah, I think it is a difference in the way people behave. But I
Kim,
think we've got a lot, that we need to start facing up to.
Kim, to point out, people are upset. People are, agitated. The thing is, they don't care because of the messaging. We've talked about this numerous days. It's because of the messaging. What was the messaging coming into the election? What was the messaging even now? The messaging has always been those individuals that think differently and don't agree with you are your enemies.
That's right.
Those individuals who disagree, who even now they're talking about how these people, when Tom Hanks does a joke, does that skit on stage, he should be jailed and all this other stuff. So they've made it to where anybody who disagrees with you or in the MAGA world is an enemy. So therefore, regardless what anybody else does, it's not going to matter because they're seen as an enemy.
But
what
I think
needs
we're
to happen
fighting
is
the
MAGA
wrong
world
battle.
needs to stand up.
We're fighting the wrong battle, Jacoby. Think about this. Did you see where the ex-NFL player got arrested yesterday or a few days ago, right?
Yep.
I guess maybe that's what y'all been talking about as well. And he was doing it because he was standing up against having the MAGA plaque. You know what? And plaque. Instead of doing that, and instead of fighting for certain things, we need to stand up and say, get the grocery bill down, put in place affordable education and affordable health care. I think those right there are the first top three things we need to be focused on. Don't focus on all of this other stuff because that's how he divides us. And I think the best thing to do is to focus on the three top important things that are important for us all as humans. And that is affordable health care, affordable education, and what was the third?
Well, I think you're right about, yes, we need to focus better because as this is the whole Steve Bannon playbook is that, hey, we're going to just throw so much out there. But the way we focus on them has to be different. I mean, the race issue and the bigoted issue, that has to be in there. However, but the way we deal with it, I agree with what Sasha does. This is what you voted for. You wanted higher prices. He told you you were going to get higher prices, and you said, screw it. This is what you wanted. So be proud of it. When
actually,
like
he
the
said
Republican
he was
Party
going to
right
lower
now,
the price.
well, the split in the Republican Party right now has been over Ukraine.
Mhm.
Well, Tom Tillis came out the other day. He's, in North Carolina, one of the reps there came out the other day talking about, well, he's concerned and this and that. No, what are you concerned for? He told you he was going to do this. He was parroting Putin's, talking points on the campaign trail. I need you to go ahead and own up to your mistake. When people die in Ukraine, I need you to go ahead and answer for that.
Well, the thing is that they've never owned up to anything. Everything's a scapegoat to them. First, they spread fear, then they point blame, and then they lead their people into the desert and convince them to drink the sand because they're thirsty. And that's how they do it. That's how they've won weak minds and the mass majority of the people for years is fear.
Well, let's do some fun news. Yesterday in fun news, the semi-dictator of Argentina gave Elon Musk a bedazzled chainsaw, which Musk waved around, causing ketamine to trend on X because when Musk was interviewed, he had difficulty forming coherent sentences. So we've got a guy with a chainsaw who's on ketamine, who's in charge of the government.
Apparently, he's in charge of the government. And
remember, that's why he hired a dude with the name of Big Balls.
I want to also point out that I received a notice this morning that my insurance company was hacked. So, I think we're going to see a cyber war rise. I think it's there. I think that the hackers are now in the U.S. Treasury. I don't like the fact that they're doing a wall of shame of people that they get names of and post their IDs and how much in taxes. If they're going to do that, they need to post everyone if you're gonna post one person, you need to post them all. I mean, and that means you and me both. But don't sit there and do a wall of shame. I hate that. I despise that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And the worst of all, it should be Trump. He should be up there for not paying his taxes. And did anyone even consider this? You know, he's talking about the people with high net worth but low income in the government and acting like that, you know, well, what's his high net worth and what's his income? Can we disclose him and shame him like he's shaming everyone else?
I mean, that's what people will be trying to do that. By the way, and this is for Sasha and everything. Vance apparently recently has been in Europe. You know, the second in command or maybe third in command.
Oh, who's Vance? Who's JD Vance?
But apparently Vance is floating this idea, and maybe y'all are going to talk about it on the show at 11 of. Because, you know, we got several major bases. One of those bases is Germany, and he's floating the idea of U.S. troop withdrawal from Germany over free speech concerns. So are we about to withdraw out of Germany? And is this something we should be doing? Because apparently he's floating this idea out there that we're going to pull out of Germany.
We have 800 military bases around the world in foreign countries. And if they're going to start pulling out, I mean, that Putin would be overjoyed with that. China would think that's great.
This is a pattern, and yes, to answer your question, Mark, at some point very, very soon, and it might be in these whole Doge cuts that Pete Hegseth wants to do. Yeah, we're gonna pull out of there because if you noticed, we pulled out of these. I mean, with Ukraine, everything Putin wants, he's getting. With all these other places, yeah, he's it's a pattern. It is a pattern.
Yep, I see it there, Benny, and everything. By the way, just really quickly, this is for Sasha, the other thing, and I kind of alluded to it earlier, because, you know, sports can be very fun, but it can also be a time that people can dig at people and all along those lines. So I did get a kick at Trudeau basically saying that after they won the Four Nations contest, so Canada, the country that you are in, pulled off the victory yesterday and everything, and Trudeau basically said, you can't take our country, we don't want to be the 51st state, and you can't take our game, because he's basically saying that hockey is Canada's game and not the US's game. And I know some people, including those with the Carolina Hurricanes and the Boston teams, may disagree with that, but I also know people were upset at Wayne Gretzky, a Trump fan, being named the honorary Canadian captain. So what was your take on the Canadian winning this Four Nation contest?
Okay, I've heard it from trusted observers, internationally known, that people attended meetings in the White House recently where there were serious discussions of preparing U.S. Army to invade Canada with the idea of making it indeed 51st state. So this is not just empty threats or so on. This is something what is being prepared now on the highest level. Now, in this situation, you see, the United States is becoming probably a much bigger threat to a free world and democracy around the world than Putin ever was, because Putin, he couldn't do much about it. And Trump is, you know, strategically, I think he's doing the right things, because with U.S. debt of $36.5 trillion and growing, this is probably the last gasp what United States can do around the world. They cannot have 800 bases around the world. They cannot dictate their policies around the world. It's about time that they have to withdraw and just become a sort of regional power, okay? So they control North America, they control Canada and Mexico, and for that they don't need $1 trillion military budget. With these two countries, they need $50 million. That's about it. They don't need the trillion. So here, you want to trim $1 trillion from U.S. expenditures? Here's go. Just close all your bases, get all your troops back to the United States, and just shut up. Just close your mouth, okay? And just sit there, negotiate with Mexico and Canada, and be happy about it. And that will be probably benefit you and your neighbors and all around the world.
Hey Kim, along those same lines and everything, the other country, and I know you're a fan of women leadership and everything, but the Mexico leader and everything is going to reform their constitution in wake of the U.S. terrorism designation. So she is vowing to protect national sovereignty as U.S. crackdowns on cartels in its territory, and she even warned the U.S. not to invade our sovereignty in the fight against cartels. So apparently, she's being one of those strong leaders and is not going to just roll over because President Trump wants her to roll over. So I just wanted your thoughts on this woman leader out of Mexico.
I think every leader in every country needs to focus on their concerns and what makes their country a better place. And I think if I were head of Mexico or any country where America is deporting a lot of people back into their doors, I would be focused on the people coming back in and how to help them readapt and reestablish into a life to help build my country better. Because now you're bringing back people who have worked in America, have learned the ways of America, which is supposed to be better. And so I think I would just be focused again more on what's happening and just be worried about my own country and let America go wherever America ends up. Don't worry about America other than they're sending people back to my country. And are they people that need to go to jail or are they people? But as far as addressing the cartel, every country has their evil. And I think that they just need to focus on what is best for them. And we need to butt our nose out of other people's businesses. And I think if we did that, other countries would be better off.
Yeah. Any thoughts on that, Toby, or anybody else? Because like I said, she has definitely been willing to stand up for her own country's thoughts and everything.
Well, two things. Yeah, Kim is right. We should butt our nose out of Mexico's business. I mean, I'm glad she's standing up for her country. The whole, again, the trying to say that the cartels are terrorist organizations is their way, is this country's way of, hey, we're now going to be able to invade. No, that should not happen. That is a very slippery slope, and then you're actually attacking a sovereign nation. So I'm glad she's standing up. I'm glad she's pushing back, and she has no reason to kowtow or lower her head to what Trump wants to do. Trump is doing nothing different than what Putin is doing. Also, in terms of the Four Nations thing, which is honestly that was a great event, and I'm glad that what the NHL did. The NHL replaced their All-Star game and their All-Star setup with what this Four Nations is. And I hope other actual sporting events do something similar, because this was phenomenal and this was really well done, especially for the sport of hockey. But on top of that, Trump ended up supposedly picking the U.S. and doing this whole stuff for the U.S. And this is the second time Trump has made a pick and they have failed. So it's hilarious. Also, Canada played a phenomenal game of hockey. If you actually watched it, the U.S. actually was actually overpowering them in overtime. However, Canada had a great shot. McDavid opened in that little slot. And he put the game away in overtime, which was phenomenal move. But yeah, it was interesting. Also, at the beginning, during the Canadian national anthem, I thought it was very classless for the individuals there to boo the Canadian anthem, which Canada is not the bad person in this. The Canadian people are not booing the quote unquote US. They're booing actually what Trump is doing and who Trump is. So there is a villain that Canada was booing, and that was actually the purpose of what they were doing, because you don't as a leader of a nation say, hey, you're going to be our 51st state, or hey, we're going to put tariffs on you because that's just ridiculous. So Canada had a reason to boo. The U.S. did not have a reason to boo Canada at all.
But Jacoby, along those same lines, and like I said, I did not watch the match, but I did see some of the clips afterwards and everything. And I have always thought that he was in the same category as the Michael Jordans of the world. But apparently, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sasha, Wayne Gretzky is not seen in the same light as he used to be seen. And part of that is his friendship with Trump. And there were a number of people that were upset that he was the honorary captain and all along those lines. And apparently he came through the U.S. side and did not wear some of the Canadian outfit and everything like that. So there was a number of people that wanted another Canadian to represent the honorary captain situation. But like I said, whenever I think of Gretzky, I put him in the same category as some of the greats of athleticism and everything, definitely like a Jordan and everything. But apparently he's not the most favorite child anymore the way he used to be. But you can correct me if I'm wrong.
There is another great Canadian player is Mario Lemieux.
Yes.
And the huge difference between them that Mario Lemieux was always part of the hockey in Canada. He was always part of the hockey scene, and hockey indeed is his life. Wayne Gretzky, he's a farm boy who climbed through, of course, he had certain talent in hockey, which was developed nicely thanks to Canadian hockey system, which is even now still superior in the world. And many people from all over the world are coming to Canada to properly learn how to play hockey and how to become great players and so on. And Gretzky was always a confirming person. He was always going where more money is available, where some favors for him, personal favors, could be available, or so on. So he was, and once he stopped playing hockey, he never became a coach. He never became a official in hockey federation or anything like this. He was always trying to be where the money is. And when he figured out that the Trump will be in power, and that's where his future is, that's where the money is, and where the power is, that's where he went. That's why he is not that popular in Canada as he should have been, and Mario Lemieux is.
Yeah, just like every other group of people, some athletes are smart and some athletes aren't. Frickin' LeBron skipped college, went straight to the NBA. Brilliant though, and very public spirited. He's a billionaire, as he should be. He's a TV producer, program developer. He's got a scholarship program that pays for the college education of a bunch of kids where he went to high school in Ohio. And then some people are kind of like, look at, Michael Jordan had kind of a confused career. People have different levels of judgment. I want to talk briefly about the cost to America's economy of us being a dick internationally. Tourism is a $2 billion industry. COVID cut it in half, and I don't think it's recovered yet. And it's going to have a hard time recovering if we're just being a dick to the rest of the world, and it's going to cost us hundreds of billions of dollars a year.
But that interesting how the politics can directly affect your travel plans. For example, on my trip to South America for this cruise in Argentina, Uruguay, and Brazil, I had to fly actually to Buenos Aires from Toronto. So there are several routes available flying through either New York or Florida or some other U.S. destination. Yet I choose to fly directly from Canada to Sao Paulo and from Sao Paulo to Buenos Aires. Why? Because guess what? Your travel insurance is a triple if you have a stopover in, or even just landing or changing planes in United States. Right. So you must avoid, right now I'm looking at the cruises, the Caribbean cruises. I'm looking only at those departing from Puerto Rico or Barbados or some other places, but not US. Because if you were doing that from US, you have to fly through US. It's incredible hassle even to go through the border control. Here in Toronto, they have US border control before you land, you board the plane flying to US destination. And this is absolutely horrifying experience. And then, of course, once you land in US, of course, it increases cost of your insurance. And so US, in any case, even if you love US, but just for this financial consideration, you have to avoid it at all cost.
I agree. And I mean, now you don't want to come because of the plane crashes. And,
Yeah.
you know, I pulled a report yesterday, and every time I pull a different report from different places, one of them said that there was about 118 plane crashes since January 1st this year. I pulled another article, and it said actually there's 197. So I'm going to dig a little bit deeper and find out why there's such a broad range in the difference in reporting and what constitutes as a plane crash maybe versus, you know, an initial deboardings and things like that. But tourism is one of our profitable points, but not the most profitable. I think America is going to lose its grip because we don't live in a reality TV show like the actors that are leading our country believe we do. When they wake up the next day, things don't reboot and start over like it did in TV. People don't come back to life. I think it's despicable that they put somebody in charge of our TSA whose only experience has been a Fox News reporter and a reality TV show actor. No merit whatsoever, yet they preach we don't hire people with merit. Our head of our health department was a drug abuser.
Heroin for 10 years.
Right.
Currently a testosterone abuser. So I wanted last night in your evening show, World Politics, we had a young guy on, Benjamin,
Yes.
young conservative guy, very well spoken, had a talking point, a response for every time we tried to pin him down about conservative stuff. He very smooth talker, and it shows that the Republicans have incubators for young talent.
Yes, they do.
And where are the young Democratic spokespeople? If you're going to be a Democratic spokesperson, a pundit, a politician, it's up to your own talent, like a Jasmine Crockett or an AOC. I don't see them getting media training. I don't see that. There's a ton of money available from billionaire Republican donors to develop talent. And
that's the difference. There's money. And all of these young Republicans come from money. They can afford getting the health care they need. They can afford getting everything, education they need. They're not having to work their butts off to pay for anything. But they're getting coached because the rich coach their own. The rich coach them.
Well, there's also the issue. The thing with the Republican Party, and this goes to your messaging, the Republican Party, yes, they have a specific message that they're going to stick to, and they're only going to stick to that message. Everything else is a platitude. Everybody else doesn't agree with you. They play the victim role while blaming everybody for being a victim, and that plays well. For example, yesterday, one thing that he brought up was, oh, well, there are the liberal media and all this liberal. That's a talking point that every single one will make, but it is a fake talking point. Again, it gets back to if you say it loud enough and say it as many times as you can, people are going to believe it. The majority of media today is owned by individuals who lean a little bit left or lean a little bit right. Look at Sinclair Media. That's your local media. Up and down the East Coast, Sinclair owns a lot, and Sinclair leans right. Many of these media conglomerates are that way. He was talking about years ago, way back in the 70s and the 80s. Oh, it was still all, well, you know, the number one station that was out there was Rush Limbaugh. He is not left wing. You still had Fox News, which still has the top viewership. So this is where the messaging comes into play. Well, they had more outlets to look at. That doesn't mean that there are more. You have if more people go to place X, but there are 50 other little small places that don't actually give you more viewers, then place X is still the number one viewership out there. You cannot say that it is not the mainstream media. Well, that's where most people are going. So it is the mainstream. But what the Republican Party does, and this is exactly what he did yesterday, played the victim, saying, hey, I don't have enough. I really don't have enough. So we have to work harder. Dude, you have a whole pipeline. So and that's the message that, as you know, people not in that right wing, we play into that, and we don't actually fight back against that.
Well, not to be fair to Toby, there is a left-wing pipeline as well. So I can't say that there isn't. I mean, we have a show that'll be on in about an hour and 15 minutes, and Stella Adams and Reverend Barber are part of that pipeline. They are grooming people that are younger. They're like in their 20s and 30s, and they are actually grooming them to be leaders. So I can't say that we don't have people that are not being groomed.
Mark, here's where, again, we run with the messaging that they have. Did I ever say that we don't have, that the left doesn't have a pipeline?
No, that's
I
true.
did not.
Right.
Did I say that the right has an established, well-run pipeline? So me saying that one has this well-established thing doesn't mean that, hey, the left doesn't have a pipeline. It's just a shabby pipeline. So what we just end up doing is arguing, well, the left has a pipeline too, so we need to equate it. No, it's not equal. It's not.
No, they have a better pipeline. I will give you that. I did have a question about athleticism and everything, because one of the things I was going to get to, even the Gretzky, because you kind of brought it up earlier, and I was trying to find the article, but I can't find it right now and everything. But as we see some athletes trying to clean up their image, because I think Rick mentioned LeBron and what LeBron has done, and I definitely think LeBron has done some great things with his neighborhood in Ohio and everything. But there was this notion that billionaire, and he is a billionaire, Michael Jordan, had not done enough in terms of charity work. But I've seen lately, over the last several years, that he's been in the NASCAR business. He's given money to a number of organizations, including the victims of Hurricane Helene and everything like that. And he's definitely even given some other things in terms of like Novant Healthcare and other charity work. So I was just wondering, are we seeing maybe Michael trying to clean up his image? We're talking about Wayne Gretzky and others, but there was a time that people thought that Michael Jordan did not do enough giving back to the community, particularly the African-American community, but the communities in general and everything. But he even made a donation, I think it was last year, to Make-A-Wish. So are we seeing Michael maybe trying to, as he gets older, trying to clean up his image as well?
I don't think he's trying to clean up his image. I mean, I think what had happened when he was dealing with the black community way back when, and he was quoted as saying, well, Republicans buy Jordans too, or Republicans buy Nikes too. Right. So he was never really, he was more that business side. But as he's grown older, maybe he did start doing a lot more for the African-American community, but it was never recognized as much because of what he had done in his past. So I don't think he's cleaning up things more so than he's just being recognized as doing more, or being recognized as doing more because the youth now today had never seen or heard about or never experienced what he was doing in the past.
That's very true.
I want to mention something interesting. I'm going to talk a lot about it on upcoming Ukrainian show, but in the meantime, I can't be quiet about something what just happened. That the New York Post. This is a paper that Donald Trump reads a lot. And there is on the first page, on today, 21st of February, there is a huge picture of Putin and the headline, President Trump, here is who is a dictator. When Trump mentions that Zelensky is a dictator. So New York Post, which is one of the favorite papers of Donald Trump, that went up with such a huge headline. So this is really something very interesting development. Now, also in Ukraine, there were polls on what Ukrainians are thinking about the Zelensky and that he is being dictator supposedly, and the elections. So the Zelensky's rating is over 60%. 87% believes that it's impossible to hold election in a country which is fighting because many Ukrainians are abroad. They left the country. Many Ukrainians were taken by Russians and now in Russia. Many Ukrainians are on the territories which are controlled now by Russians. How you can call like any meaningful election? Maybe there will be maybe 20-25% participation. So can you call that election? And what's the purpose of the election? The purpose is to help Putin and Trump to get rid of Zelensky. So they believe that whoever will win the election, it will be much easier to negotiate. Okay, there is no other purpose in that election because Zelensky is still very popular. And not only that, even if he wouldn't be that popular, it's impossible to hold meaningful election in the fighting country.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Ukraine became an independent country in about 1991 with the fall of the Soviet Union, but it wasn't really independent. It had a very corrupt government that was usually in the pocket of Russia. And there's been a multi-decade push to get rid of the corruption and have Ukraine stand on its own so it can stand up to Russia. And it gradually, year by year, becomes less corrupt and to the point where, Zelensky stands up to Russia. And yeah, they want to turn the clock back to have a president of Ukraine who kisses Putin's ass.
Yeah,
he is pushing much farther than just somehow control Ukraine. He's now pushing that all U.S. bases have to be gone from the countries of Eastern Europe, including Romania, Poland, and many others. So Putin is preparing a platform from which he can easily invade European Union, NATO, if NATO will still exist, probably not. So this is something that Trump is doing for Putin more than anybody in this world or all of them put together. Trump is doing incredible job for Putin. And if I always was saying that Trump always was a KGB asset, so now you finally can see that for yourself. You don't need me anymore to tell you.
It looks like it's very obvious and everything. But just really quickly, because I think Jatovy had brought it up before and everything, and maybe I misheard him, but did you say one time, Jatovy, that there is a large amount of folks from one of the Eastern European countries, I think it was Romania, that are here that are illegal and everything, but we don't even talk about them? I think I heard you say that on one of our past shows. So if you wanted to clarify that, or maybe I misheard you.
No, I mean, there are people. So the overstaying of visas is where the quote unquote problem with immigration is, in terms of, a huge problem with immigration are people overstaying their visas. That brings people from everywhere, from not only Canada to not only the Eastern Ukraine to everywhere across the globe. So when those visas expire, you got to go to the immigration office. But again, that is the problem that we're having with that is a huge problem with our immigration system that we're not really talking about, and the effects that this whole mass deportation and there is no bill on the floor to actually help assist with legalized immigration or even to help assist with the individuals that have overstayed their visas. Until that gets fixed, we're always going to have immigration problems because there are going to be people in line waiting, one, at the borders, but two, that are getting deported for overstaying their visas. They're actually working, but their visa ran out and they can't get an established date to get that visa fixed because we don't put money there. We're focused on, right now, because of this administration, demonizing individuals and attacking them and making immigrants into some giant drug lord that's taking somebody's job, but also selling them drugs for some reason. It's just,
it's crazy and everything. We got Steve, and I know we only got a minute to go and everything. I know he's over there in DC and everything like that. He was actually with the Democrats. So any quick things you want to tell us about what's going on in DC?
Well, I was last night with Governor Stein and the 12 governors of the U.S., Andy Beshear, Josh Shapiro, all the governors, and it was great. It was the Democratic Governors Association, and it was a dinner that my partner and I, my firm, hosted with the DGA. It was great. Got to meet with the governors. There's just a lot of concern about, the federal cuts and what that's going to mean. Stein had to leave early. He didn't get to speak. We were hoping he would speak, which was a little disappointing. But they all spoke, and it was really good. A really intimate setting. Turns out I met the governor of Delaware, a young guy who actually was a county commissioner, and he was a city councilman, county commissioner, and then became governor. So. And we have a lot in common, so I'm going to have to give them a later day before I head out. But I think a lot of talk internationally about Ukraine, and it's really scary, in terms of just how this thing has shifted. But we knew this was coming, and now I think Europe is worried, and so I think it's just going to continue. But yeah, a positive message here from the governors. It's one of the areas I think still can get things done if they can, they can lead by finding the right issues. So, that's all I got on this end. I'll be back on Monday, but lots going up here. It's cold in DC. So
I'm sure it's cold.
Drive safely or fly safely and stay warm.
Yeah, I'm flying back, and I'll catch up with you next week, Kim. I've been on the road for the last 2 weeks, but I'll be back.
Looking forward to talking.
Congress has been in session for 6 weeks. They haven't done any legislation about immigration. I was looking up yesterday. We were talking about overstaying your visa is not a crime. It's a civil offense. For the last year, we have information. 23 million people came to the U.S. on visas. 3.5% of them overstayed their visas. 800,000 people.
I think that there could have been a better way of managing what they did. One, instead of going around and firing everybody or doing layoffs at TSA, I think that they should have sat down, evaluated things, and asked TSA how it could have been improve their jobs. I think as far as immigration goes, I think that they should have fired all of the IRS agents and moved them to manage the immigration situation and ask people to come and register like we used to do many, many years ago. Come and talk to us, register with us, bring a letter of reference, why it's important for you to stay here, and let's process you properly rather than just knee jerk and swing a blade and send everybody over. And some of the people shouldn't have been deported. We're finding out that many people had hearings coming up. It was reckless. This recklessness is costing us more money because he needs to show off and show I can do this fast. And I think he needs to focus on lowering our prices so that we can afford to live here, rather than focus on making a big show for everybody.
He doesn't.
The IRS is broken. The IRS isn't just
it should go. It needs to go.
No, the IRS needs to stay. The issue is
the IRS agents aren't just there to hassle you about your return. They're there to pick up the phone and help you file your returns.
They're not there to help you file. They're not there. It's so complicated. You had to hire somebody. I hire people now. I used to never hire people. 5 years ago, I never hired anybody to do
So,
my.
with your taxes, you can file all your taxes and get all that done for free. However, the IRS being understaffed and the actual computer systems also outdated, that stuff needs to be updated. But the thing is, we're not doing that. Why? Because we've demonized an area that actually goes after the individuals. For example, I think somebody pointed out that an IRS agent that does an audit in someone in the top 1%, that one audit per a particular amount brings
Fivefold,
twice as
or
much.
sixfold, however much
Yeah.
you spend on agents who
Yeah,
you get rich people's
So-
return. You get
Let me tell you how they justify that they're bringing in fivefold. It's the amount of interest that they charge if they find anything wrong. So if they find that, say, you're $20,000 off, then they are going to charge you 40% on top of another 35 to 40, maybe even 50. They adjust it at will percent penalty fee, but the interest goes charged back all the way to the day that you filed your original, or when it should have been filed, which goes back years because it takes years to audit people now. And
Just to
that's
point out,
where they
Kim,
get the money. The money is from the interest and the penalties, not from what you owe.
Kim, you started out with if you are $20,000 off, that right there tells you the position that you're speaking from. $20,000. Nobody in the lower to middle class is going to be $20,000.
No, that was just an
off.
example. You can be
I get that, but what I'm
$100
stating
you can
to
be
you is,
$100 off. I'll put it to you this
so,
way: when they
for example,
audited me, I was $13 off. 13. Okay.
I get that.
But
what I'm saying
then
is-
that wasn't enough for them, so they lied on my report and said that I failed to report $120,000, which I had to hire an accountant to come in and show. I've never had $120,000 to report.
Okay, again,
They
your
lied.
personal issue with the IRS doesn't mean the IRS should be shut down.
Yeah,
The
I think
IRS itself, for example, for every $1 the IRS spends auditing the top 1%, it collects $26. For every $1,
do you know how much they spend
on the top 1%,
auditing?
which actually shows that there is a reason that the IRS itself being attacked and shut
Do the
down for
math
individuals.
of how much they spent auditing to get that $26. Do the
$1. I gave you the
$1.
figure.
No. I'm going to tell you
I
right now.
legitimately gave you a
Sit
figure.
in the
No,
room
Kim,
and do the math.
I
They're
did the
gonna
math.
have
I'm
3
giving
to
you the
4
math.
people sitting with the audit.
No,
3 to 4 people.
Kim, I'm giving
Do
you
the
the math.
The math
I
is wrong.
know that you don't like the math because of the personal problem that you had with the
It's
IRS.
not just me. I see it happen all the time. And you know what? Talk to Scott Steele. Let's
I
bring
will talk
Scott
to anybody.
Steele.
I'm giving you the math.
No,
If I'm
bring
giving you the
Scott
figure-
Steele. Bring Scott Steele in, and he will tell
That's
you.
fine. Let's bring Robert Reich in.
Scott Steele left because of the unethics.
Let's bring
that
Robert Reich in. Let's talk to him too.
all right. I gotta go, you guys. I'll see you.
And
I'm
it's
just saying,
the end
have
of
a
the
good weekend.
show. We're 3 minutes past due. Love talking to all of y'all. Everyone have a great day. Stay safe, stay warm, stay away from the airports for a while until they figure out what's going on. Because if I were the president, that would be my priority, is to find out what's going on. Take care.